the asylum, a ghostly encounter.
It was a dark and stormy night when Sarah and her friends decided to explore the abandoned asylum on the outskirts of town. The asylum had been closed for many years, but rumors persisted that the ghosts of the patients still haunted the halls. Sarah, a thrill seeker at heart, had always been fascinated by the paranormal. She had read every book on the subject and had even taken a course on ghost hunting. When her friends suggested exploring the asylum, Sarah jumped at the chance. As they made their way through the dark and creepy halls, Sarah's heart raced with excitement. She had brought all of her ghost hunting equipment, including an EMF meter and a digital recorder. She was determined to capture evidence of the supernatural. As they walked through the halls, they heard strange noises coming from the rooms. They heard whispers, moans, and screams. But Sarah was undeterred. She was convinced that they were getting closer to something truly supernatural. As they approached one of the rooms, they heard a loud banging coming from inside. Sarah's heart raced with excitement as she opened the door, only to find an empty room. Disappointed, they continued on their search. As they explored deeper into the asylum, they noticed that the temperature was dropping rapidly. Sarah's EMF meter started to go off, and they heard footsteps coming from the end of the hallway. They followed the sound and found themselves in a room filled with old medical equipment. Suddenly, Sarah felt a cold breeze on the back of her neck. She turned around and saw a figure standing in the doorway. The figure was tall and thin, with long, tangled hair. It was dressed in tattered clothing, and its eyes glowed with an otherworldly light. Sarah's heart raced with fear as she realized that they had stumbled upon a real ghost. The figure moved towards them, and they could hear its labored breathing. Sarah's friends tried to run, but they found that they were unable to move. They were frozen in place, unable to escape. The ghost moved closer and closer, and Sarah could feel its cold breath on her face. Suddenly, the ghost let out a blood-curdling scream, and Sarah and her friends collapsed on the ground. When they woke up, they were in a different part of the asylum. They were in a room that was completely empty, except for a small window high up on the wall. They tried to open the door, but it was locked from the outside. They were trapped. As the days turned into weeks, Sarah and her friends began to lose hope. They were unable to escape, and they had no food or water. The temperature continued to drop, and they could hear strange noises coming from the halls. They knew that they were not alone. One night, Sarah woke up to find the ghost standing at the foot of her bed. The ghost was no longer angry or aggressive. Instead, it seemed sad and lost. Sarah realized that the ghost was not there to hurt them, but to communicate with them. As the days passed, Sarah and her friends started to communicate with the ghost. They learned that the ghost was once a patient at the asylum. She had been locked up for years, and she had died alone in her cell. Her spirit had been trapped in the asylum ever since. Sarah and her friends tried to find a way to help the ghost. They searched the room for any clues that could lead to her release. Finally, they found a hidden passage that led to the basement of the asylum. As they approached one of the rooms, they heard a loud banging coming from inside. Sarah's heart raced with excitement as she opened the door, only to find an empty room. Disappointed, they continued on their search. As they explored deeper into the asylum, they noticed that the temperature was dropping rapidly. Sarah's EMF meter started to go off, and they heard footsteps coming from the end of the hallway. They followed the sound and found themselves in a room filled with old medical equipment. Sarah's heart raced with fear as she realized that they had stumbled upon a real ghost. The figure moved towards them, and they could hear its labored breathing. Sarah's friends tried to run, but they found that they were unable to move. They were frozen in place, unable to escape. The ghost moved closer and closer, and Sarah could feel its cold breath on her face. Suddenly, the ghost let out a blood-curdling scream, and Sarah and her friends collapsed on the ground.
The malevolent haunting of families fight for their home.
It was a warm summer night when the Johnson family moved into their new home. The house was a beautiful Victorian-style mansion with a large yard and a spacious interior. As they moved in, the family couldn't help but feel a sense of excitement and anticipation. But as the night wore on, strange things began to happen. Doors would slam shut on their own, and the family could hear strange footsteps coming from the halls. The air in the house grew thick and heavy, and a feeling of unease settled over the family. At first, they tried to ignore the strange occurrences, chalking them up to the house settling. But as the nights wore on, the occurrences became more frequent and more unsettling. One night, the youngest Johnson child, Sarah, woke up to find a figure standing at the foot of her bed. The figure was tall and thin, with long, bony fingers and a pale face. Sarah tried to scream, but her voice caught in her throat. The figure leaned in close to Sarah, and she could feel its cold breath on her face. It whispered something in a language that she didn't understand, and then it disappeared into thin air. The next day, the Johnson family decided to seek out the help of a local paranormal investigator. The investigator, a man named Peter, came to the house to investigate the strange occurrences. As he walked through the halls of the house, Peter could feel a strong presence in the air. He could sense that the house was haunted by a malevolent spirit, one that was determined to cause harm. Peter decided to conduct a seance in order to communicate with the spirit. As the seance began, the room grew colder and colder, and the family could hear strange whispers coming from the walls. Suddenly, the table in the center of the room began to shake violently. The lights flickered on and off, and the family could hear a loud, guttural growling sound. Then, the spirit revealed itself. It was a dark, shadowy figure with red eyes and long, sharp claws. It was angry and vengeful, and it wanted the Johnson family out of its house. Peter tried to reason with the spirit, but it was too far gone. It attacked him, and he was forced to flee the house. The Johnson family knew that they had to act fast if they wanted to get rid of the malevolent spirit. They sought out the help of a local exorcist, a man named Father Marcus. Father Marcus arrived at the house with a Bible and a vial of holy water. He conducted a powerful exorcism, calling upon the power of God to banish the spirit from the house. As he recited the ancient incantations, the air grew thick with a foul, sulfurous smell. The temperature in the house dropped rapidly, and the family could hear the spirit howling with rage. But Father Marcus was determined to succeed. He continued to recite the incantations, pouring holy water on every surface in the house. Finally, the spirit let out a blood-curdling scream, and then it was gone. The air in the house cleared, and the temperature returned to normal. The Johnson family could feel a sense of peace settling over the house. As the years passed, the Johnson family continued to live in the house. Though they never forgot the terror that they had experienced, they knew that they had triumphed over evil, and that their home was once again a safe and peaceful place.